Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to the Saturday. It's Saturday, right? It's Saturday night edition of Encrypted Connections, Weird Weekends. We have another encounter tonight. You know how much I love the encounters. It's always my favorite because, being a fan of the topic and the subject, to get to hear people describe what they saw, it puts you right there with them, and it's exciting. It can be scary. It can be, it can bring up some anxiety depending on who you are or maybe what you've been through. This is my cat Ollie. He makes an appearance every single time I go live. This cat has to jump in my lap. He leaves me alone all day. As soon as I go live, he's got to be here. I don't know. Maybe he's like the Kardashians. They just have to have the spotlight at all times. So we have a wonderful guest tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dax Rushlow. How you doing tonight, Dax?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I mean, as good as I can be anyway.
Yeah.
So before we get into the actual encounter, I'm gonna ask you just a quick couple questions so people can get a little background on you. Where are you from? Where were you born and raised? And when you were a child or growing up, did you have any idea that these things existed?
Well, I was born and raised in Newport Center, Vermont, which is right almost on the Canadian border. I lived there up until I was about 17 and then moved away and just visit there now. But as far as when I was younger, did I know anything? No. Nah, I thought it was spooky and creepy and stuff like I heard about things, but that was about as far as it ever went with me.
Okay, so yeah, you weren't in the woods thinking like, oh man, I'd love to see a Sasquatch, or it didn't really cross your mind much. This was a total surprise to you when this happened.
Oh yeah. And we grew up in the woods. I hunted when I was younger with my grandfather, friends, and stuff like that. We were out in the woods. That's where we spent most of our time. But nothing like that ever crossed my mind.
All right. So I just like to get a little background before we start, just because I think it's important. A lot of these encounters that I hear that people come on the show and talk about are surprises. That they are traumatic to people because most people either didn't believe or just was one of those things where like they may have seen the video of Patty at one point, but it was kind of the thing like, oh, that's pretty neat, but it really wasn't reality to them. And so I say this a lot, if you don't know, you don't know. And so when you're faced with the reality that there's more out there than it can be pretty traumatizing. So that's why I like to ask a couple of those questions. Let me just say hello to a few people in the chat. Hey, Fresh. Hey, Janelle. Cans, thank you for being here. Sandra, thank you for being here. Who else? Mike. Oh, buddy, Mike. Mike. Me and Mike. Mike's my new right-hand man in the field. He lives in Connecticut on the opposite side as me. He lives in the northwest corner. And we just actually found out that there's been a whole bunch of activity going on up there right in his town, ongoing activity at a farm that we're going to try to go out to. So I'm excited for that. And hello, Cashew. Hi, Meredith. Cashew is the best. Everybody knows that. All right. So Dax, tell us what happened, brother.
Well, it was 1987. It was January 10th or so, whatever that weekend was, before the 19th, because the 19th is my birthday, and I hadn't turned 16 yet. But I was on my snowmobile, rode to a girlfriend's house, decided to stay a little bit later than I was supposed to because I still had a curfew. And then I hurried up, got suited back up, decided to take a shortcut down the dirt road instead of getting on the snowmobile trail to go home, because I figured, okay, well, it'll be quicker. It's easy. I don't have to go through all the stuff. It was at night anyway. It must have been 9:15, somewhere around there. And so I started to head down the dirt road, which I knew everything on the left and the right side of this road. I grew up there, been up and down it a million times, summer, winter, doesn't matter. And that's when all of a sudden my headlights started to pick up something over to my left side in a snowbank where I knew there was nothing but a field, and then about, maybe a football field worth of grass until you got to the tree line. And that's where it all kind of came to happen. I just slowed down, I remember, and then see this giant object getting bigger. And as I finally come to the stop, I realized it looked like a big person. Like, it didn't look like a deer. It didn't look like a moose. It was as big as a moose, but it was standing there in the snowbank. And I think I cut it off. Like, I think it was going to cross the road, and I took the shortcut, and I don't think he expected me. And then we stopped. Well, I stopped. He's already stopped. And I just get a glimpse of him. I'm looking at it. I can see him breathing. I can see the chest going in and out. It looked like he had huffed across the field. The snow was pretty deep. So he probably had to walk through all that deep snow, but he was still breathing heavy, like he was just stopped. And at that point, I remember seeing the face, some features, a little bit of hair, like with snow stuck in it underneath his legs, like snow dingleberries. I used to have a German Shepherd dog that used to get them stuck in his hair all the time. That's what I could see down underneath the crotch area of this thing. And once it probably only lasted 5-10 seconds, but it felt like longer than that. But I don't remember hitting the gas on the snowmobile. Just the next thing I know, I had pinned it and I was just gone. And I'm going as fast as that snowmobile will go. And I just remember trying to turn around and look to see if the thing was on the road coming after me. And my only thought was, God, don't flip over. Don't flip over. And, I boogied home after that. And I was so glad I got home and there was nobody even there, which was nice because I didn't really want to talk to anybody once I got there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I didn't want, because I was still trying to think of what the heck just happened, let alone try to explain it to somebody else. So.
yeah, definitely. See, the details you get from different people are so neat, right? You being able to see the chest going in and out when he's breathing. Yep. I'm assuming you're seeing the moisture because it's cold out too, right?
Yep.
When people talk about these things and when they say that they've heard them breathing, who people have been close to them, one of the things that they mention almost all the time is that it's such a deep breath. It's like a horse breathing is what people compare it to, most often, at least from what I've heard, is a horse breathing. I guess I would imagine with a creature that large, it probably has some pretty big lungs. How big do you think this thing was?
I would put it in the 8-foot range, at least. The snowbanks on the side of the road must have been 3 feet, and this thing, I could see its kneecap hang over the snowbank. So, however far it sunk down, he was still 6 feet or so above the snowbank.
Yeah. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's maybe even closer to 9 foot.
It could be. It was big. That's all I know. It was very big.
What color?
As far as I could tell, it looked very black. But what was weird was my headlight, and it was due to it was light snow at that point, not heavy, but it looked like it was glistening. And every once in a while, when I was stopped for that few seconds, it would shift a little bit, and then I would either see gray hair or it was just shiny silver. I couldn't tell if it was wet or if it was actually a color of the hair. But
Yeah, it could have been both. Could have been a little of both.
yeah.
But what they're finding out too about these things from a lot of the hair samples that they're taking is that they have this. The hair and the skin both have this ability to reflect the colors around them when light's introduced.
Mhm.
It's like a camouflage technique. So when people say like, "Oh my God, how can they remain so hidden?" Well, this is one of the ways. Apparently, is that if you took one of their hairs, you put it under a microscope, and you took a green leaf, and you held that leaf next to that microscope, and then you shined light onto it, that hair would look green. It's really crazy to see it. It's nuts, man. It's like a prism almost. It's really, really nuts. So who the hell knows? It could have been gray hair, could have been partially being wet, or it could have been a mix of the three things.
Yeah.
This is all the questions. The more you get into this topic, the more questions you get. More times you think you're answering something, the more you end up going, "Oh man, what next? What next?"
Yep. I've had more questions now than ever before. Even after that, once years later, when I started to kind of look into it, and all I've got now is just more and more questions. No, I don't have any answers. I wish I did.
Yeah, that's most of us. Most of us have
Yeah.
no answers.
Yep.
So that's Fresh has a question. He says, since this time, how has this experience changed things personally for you?
I think it opened. I don't know if I was always as open-minded. Of course, I was young still then, only 15. So you're still kind of growing up and stuck in your teenage years. But after that happened, I did notice that. Wow, I mean, anything's possible. I think. I wouldn't shoot down anything anybody says as not possible. It's like after this, it's like wow, okay, what else?
Yeah.
I think that changed me a lot. And then being out in the woods, because I'm still an outdoors guy. I love snowmobiling, skiing, hiking, camping. My wife and I are always doing that, four-wheeling. And I love being out there. And I don't know, it gives me more of an open sense of, wow, there's other stuff out here than just your typical bear, moose, deer, and skunk and rabbits, and the stuff that everybody says. But I don't know. It just, yeah, it kind of gives you a little more like, wonder if there's one around, even if you don't hear or see anything.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
And so your encounter was it was obviously it was kind of calm. There was no aggression. There was no. I mean, obviously the fear, because you were like, what the hell is this thing? Obviously it's huge. It's on the side of the road. It's covered in hair. It's nighttime. There's that fear.
Yep.
But it wasn't, there was no aggressive behavior or anything to make you like really freak out. I hear people talk about when they have these encounters with these things and they're calm, right? And I'm a little envious because mine was not that way. And they get to go into the woods and they end up with this like mindset of, wow, it's so cool to think that these things are out here, right? It's so neat to know that there's possibly a relative of ours that's in these woods now, and now I feel that way, years later. But for a long time, I was like, hell no, I'm not going in those woods. Crazy, these things are out there. 9-foot tall, 1,000-pound giants who are shaking trees and threatening people who come in contact with them. Nope, not me. But so for you, it was different. It was a total opposite. So you still go in the woods, no problem. Didn't bother you one bit that way?
Afterwards, yeah. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm still spooked at night. I mean, if I go out and I don't know if I can't see, I'm more spooked. Like when I was younger, me and my friend, I remember sleep down by this riverbank, just throw like branches down, sleep there all night, not even care. I never thought twice about anything. Worst thing, our biggest fear was like getting sprayed by a skunk or something stupid. And now, if I have to know where I'm going or be out, or it's not that bad if I'm like night driving around or out on a snowmobile at night, but yeah, for me to be walking through the woods, it definitely changed the way I thought about things at after that point.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Can you describe the face for us, at least as best you can?
Yeah, I mean, the best way I can explain what the face looked like was the drawings that people have of, or pictures, not pictures, but drawings of Neanderthal men back in, way, way back. That's the thing I can picture. It's the way the face was shaped, and the jawline on the thing was huge, which looked different than, you know, you or me or anybody else I've ever seen. And the fact that the mouth, I could see this white frothy stuff on the side of its mouth, and it was way, way out here on the side of its face. Like its mouth must have been twice as long as mine, sideways. It had a very big, and I never saw teeth or anything like that because it never did anything but breathe. While for the 10 seconds I looked at it, but it looked like like a Neanderthal man, and I would say the skin looked grayish, if anything. Like a horse's nose kind of gray or a cow's nose, but it looked like that. That was the color I could see, even though a lot of it was covered with some hair, but I could easily see the mouth. I could see the chest. I could see, almost where a belly button would be. I couldn't tell because I wasn't that close, but it looked like a regular human type thing,
Yeah, yeah. Was it now like its musculature? Was it more lean or was it bulky?
It looked like a basketball player on steroids.
Okay.
It like had giant shoulders, long. I remember the arms being really long. They almost hung down to the snowbank. And yeah, but it even had some kind of a weightlifter's gut almost. Not like it was fat, but it just, you could tell that thing was solid, whatever it was. But I couldn't see abs. I just saw a round gut kind of. But I mean, the thing just matched his body, and it was just tall, lanky. Like it probably could have just stepped over my snowmobile and me and gone across the road. I mean, that's how tall the thing looked when I was sitting down on it.
I don't think people understand too. Like when you hear stories all the time, if you're a fan of the subject, you hear so many, and people say, "Oh, 8 foot, 9 foot." I try to make it a little more real for people, and I try to tell them like, okay, if it's 8 feet tall, stand up in your house and look up at your ceiling, because generally most ceilings and most houses are right about 8 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So that should give you a real idea of how tall 8 feet is. It's big. It is big. And some of the stories that I've heard, some of the researchers that I know, these things get much bigger than that apparently in certain areas. Down in Florida, Mark Zasky's been filming these things 10 foot, 12 foot. There's a video he's got of one off in the distance in a tree. All you can see is its face. It's crazy, right? So the green bushes, and then all of a sudden this thing kind of just appears through the leaves, and it's clearly a face, 2 eyes, big wide nose, mouth, forehead, but it's green. It's taking on the color of those things around it, right? So it's really difficult to see until he highlights it. But his friend is walking through a field towards these bushes that are off in the distance, and his friend doesn't have any idea that this thing's there. He can't see it. When you look at the size of this thing compared to his friend, this is no exaggeration. I wish I could pull this video up right now. The size of the head on this creature is almost about half the size of this guy, just the head. He and Mark even said in the video, he was like, I have no idea what to say about this because he have never seen anything of that size before. guesstimating he would have said somewhere around 15 feet.
Yeah.
Imagine 15 feet, man. 15
Oh.
feet. That's a giant. That's a real giant.
Oh, that's giant. Yep.
It's a real
I mean,
giant.
picture a 15-foot great white shark. Look how big they are.
Huge, man.
Yeah.
So big.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah. That big bulkiness, all around too, body to, head and tail. It's like,
Yeah.
I just said 15 feet is wow.
Massive,
Yeah.
bro. It's massive.
Yeah.
That's
15
5
feet.
foot. That's 5 foot higher than a regulation basketball rim.
Yeah. Yep. I could almost stand on top of myself 2.5 times and not be that tall.
That's yeah. Wow. Yeah. See, put it that way. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I'm 5'5", so yeah, he's more than twice the tall. Even if I was to stack myself on top of myself, I'd still be short.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I know.
But still, like 15 feet, that's insanely big. But I mean, 8 and 9 foot for people who've never seen anything that large. And then you add to that the frame of these things with these super wide shoulders, these super long arms, and even the ones that seem to be more lean and ripped and not like really bulky, are still so big, man.
Yeah.
Still so big. It's crazy. And I just don't think a lot of times people understand it because it's talked about so nonchalantly sometimes. But it's a massive thing to see.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we talked about the face. We talked about the height of this thing. Can you the hair? I like to give everybody as much detail about this stuff as possible. So, length of the hair. Where was it the hairiest on its body? How long was the hair? You said you could see through like the chest and the stomach area. Okay.
Yeah, it looked thinner there. Most of the thickest hair was like must be around the back of the head, wherever the ears. I didn't see any ears. If he had them, I couldn't see them. But around here, the neck, the shoulder area, the arms looked hairy and like they had a little longer, and the back of the legs, because that's where I could see those little snow chunks stuck on the back of the leg. But everything else seemed kind of thinner. Like the hair wasn't as thick around the chest, the stomach, even around the crotch area, like in your front thighs, looked pretty hairy to me. I couldn't see penis or anything looking like that. It was all just hair. Yeah, that's all I could see down there. Best pieces of it I saw was the shape of the arm and the elbow, its face, and then the chest and stomach area just were kind of easy to pick up just because there wasn't as much hair, so it was easy to see it.
Were the eyes did they have whites or were they all black?
All black, as far as I could see. Yep.
Yeah.
I never saw any whites, and I could see the glistening off the eyes, but I couldn't see any whites. But they all looked black, like big black marbles.
Yeah, like a great white eye.
Yeah, I mean, unless there was whites and I didn't pick it up, but they were, they were big. Like his eyeballs were probably, this big around, but they looked all black. I don't remember seeing white.
Yeah, that's most of them. I think people say that they don't see whites. If there are any, they're probably very small, very corner of the eye, and that's difficult to see in most encounters. So you saw the reflection off the eye. Did they reflect any color, or was it just a glisten of the light? Because you hear often that people say these things when light hits their eyes, it's almost like they're glowing.
Yeah, that's the weird thing too, and I get that, and I think I've even seen something a while ago that might have been what people would consider like a reddish, orangish eye shine. But when I saw this is what's confusing. It was my headlight was pointing straight, and it was only like 5 feet off to the side at a slight angle. So still the light was on it, but I never saw any shine. I could tell they were black, just like a black eyeball, but never glowed on me or anything like that. I never saw it, even though my light was shining off it. Because other than that, I wouldn't have been able to see half of what I saw. I probably would have noticed it standing there, but wouldn't have made out anything, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And you know, see, this is all stuff that like that kind of gets logged, and you know, as data. Every story is important. Every encounter is important. Every detail is important to try to learn more about them. Because I don't think there's going to come a time in our lives where we're going to have one to study up close. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they're way, way, way too smart. They're physically way more capable than we are. There's no way that I think even if the best hunter had one of these things in its scope and took a shot, I honestly believe that they are so incredibly quick that by the time it heard that click of that a trigger, it's already moving. That's what I believe. I just when you hear people talk about them and how fast they move, there was a video not too long ago I watched where one of these things moved in the bush line, and it was literally a blur, just a blur. It was soon, like you watch a cartoon. There's nothing like it I've ever seen in my life. But what was I going to say? Man, I just lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. CTE. That's the problem. I have CTE. Okay, so the face, the hair, the body. When you went by this thing and you said you were trying to turn around and look, did it follow you with its face? Like, was it trained on you as you drove by, or did he really didn't give a shit and kind of went about his business?
Yeah, I don't even really know. And the worst part was, of course, I had a snowmobile helmet on, a full face helmet with the visor down. And now this is what I'm looking through and I'm seeing the whole time. And then when I finally freaked out or whatever happened and I hit the gas and I started to move, I almost had to catch up with myself. And then I remember trying to look around. I could never see back because, of course, my headlight now, it's pointing straight down the road, and now it's pitch black right behind me, and I can't see anything. And that's why I think I was just like, oh, God, don't flip over, because I had no idea if it was still there or if it was running after me, or, I couldn't see it. So it was like, oh, shit.
I'm sure. I bet you, like you said, I'm sure you probably. He came out of that field, took a stop on the side of the road for whatever reason, whether it was to catch his breath or to just scan the area, and may even been because he heard the snowmobile. A lot of times these things, from what people theorize, they hear noises of machinery when they're doing logging or there's construction somewhere nearby, and they don't really understand what's going on or where it's coming from. So they go out to look, and then it's too late. They stumble into the area and somebody sees them. And that could have been what happened. He heard you coming and didn't know where you were, so he stopped, and then all of a sudden you're right on top of him, and there you go. You have a little face-to-face encounter that for the rest of your life you get to carry with you.
Yep. And I think that's what kind of happened, because like I said, I was trying to take the shortcut and go down the road, so I went that way. The snowmobile trail goes up over the bank and heads like in the opposite direction, where I wouldn't have seen him or even been on the road anymore. So maybe it thought that that's where I was going, but instead of getting on the trail, I just like, I can make it faster if I go straight down. And that's, so I kept going. And I think that's maybe why he stopped, because, oh crap, hey, this guy, he ain't on the snowmobile trail.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense because they live in these areas, right? You would think that they would know the area as well as anybody, better than anybody, honestly, because who spends more time in the woods than one of these things? It's literally where it's at day and night for however long they live. So yeah, it may have thought you were over there, and he was like, well, I'm just going to take a rest right now, and then, oh shit, here he comes.
Oh God, he came the wrong way. Damn it.
yeah, nowhere to go now.
Yep.
you'd be surprised. Well, I don't know. You may know, but the majority of sightings that people have are on a road.
Yeah.
Just seeing one on the side of the road or crossing the road down in front of them. This is the majority of sightings, at least in this country, are on a road.
Yeah.
It's all by accident, and
That because if you've ever been out looking for them, I know I have been. I know lots of other people have been, and I never see them on purpose. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I haven't yet, not on purpose. It's only been an accident. You know?
yeah, it's very, very rare, man. There's certain things that I think are coming to light now over the last like handful of years, though. And I don't know if this is across the board, but at least in certain areas, they don't move. People used to think that they would travel from place to place almost daily, right? They would be in an area for a couple of days, and then they would leave that area, and they would go to a different area for a couple of days, and they would leave that area. And that's not what's being found. What's being found is that they have a home, and that home is home, and they're embedded in that area like ticks, and they don't move a lot. That's how they remain so hidden, is that they can remain still, in the bushes, on the ground, which I do believe they spend a lot of their time on the ground, on their belly, or laying down, or even on all fours. And so not moving and staying in these places for long periods of time not only keeps them hidden from us, keeps them hidden from their prey, right?
Yeah.
So they're still inside these bushes, they're camouflaged perfectly, and then the deer don't see them, and then boom, deer walks by, and one of these giant things pops out and just grabs it, and breaks its legs or snaps its neck, is kind of what they're saying they do anyway, or what the bones in these killing fields that people continue to find are showing. There's a few women who have a group who study these things down south, and they're amazing. They're so badass. They have no fear whatsoever, and so they found this crazy place. I believe it was in Georgia. Maybe I think it was in Georgia, but that's where I got the term from. They called it a killing field, and what it was is it was this area way out in the woods. It was hidden. It was tucked away. There was like a big thick brush all around it, and kind of like a tunnel that led into it. And when they got through this tunnel, it opened up, and it was like a pit, and this pit was full of bones, full of deer carcasses, full of it was mostly deer, but there were other big animals in there too, just rotting or mostly eaten, and every single one of them, broken back legs and snapped necks, every one of them. Tell me that's not creepy.
Oh yeah. Yep. And you know what? I do believe that they are pretty good deer hunters. I was out probably 5 years ago. We were up in New Hampshire near Hebron area. I forget the other little town that's near there. But we were walking through the woods, and all of a sudden these deer almost ran me over. Two of them, like darting through they were running like from something, and I was kind of out in the open. These things ran past me within 10 feet, and they just kept booking it. Something spooked them like really bad, and then hell, they didn't even stop to get out of my way. They bolted right past me. If I'd have been 10 feet closer, they'd have run me right over. I'm like,
and that's not a normal deer. That's not normal deer behavior.
No, not a deer to come running at you. No. And they weren't running at me. It's just, boy, they were booking it in the opposite direction of whatever they were running from. and it didn't bother them I was there. I'm not even sure they cared at that point.
Right.
They were,
Yeah.
whoa, and I'm like, wow, that is really bizarre. I wonder what the hell out there spooked these two,
Well, yeah.
crazy.
At that point, you were the lesser of two evils. They were like, yeah, just
Yeah.
you're like, don't worry about that guy. Just get away from the thing that's behind us.
Yes. Yeah. That was the weirdest thing, man. I've never had animals come that close to me when you're kind of out. We were kind of out in the open too, not like buried in between trees or anything. So it wasn't like I wasn't visible, So strange though.
So you mentioned a little earlier that you said you think you may have seen some weird eye shine at one point. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there was and I believe it was when I was in Ohio. We went to the Bigfoot conference out there, and then once everything was kind of done, one of the nights, I decided to go out, and we took the little night vision camera and stuff like that, and we started to walk around. And I even have it on the camera. Somebody says, "I saw what you were looking at," and he says there was definitely something there. All I could see looked like two eyes, and it kept dipping behind a tree and then back out and behind a tree. And all I could see was these eyes. I couldn't see a shape of anything else. And my buddy said he watched the tape later, and he said, I could tell you were zoomed in on something, and there was definitely something there. And I'm pretty sure whatever it was, I could see it looked like orangey red little eyeballs, from a distance. They were probably 100 feet away, but whatever it was, they were there and moving.
Well, that whole swaying, right? That motion and the ducking behind the tree is a common behavior. It's so many encounters you hear people say that they were doing this rocking motion, right? And it makes sense that it would, if they're curious, it's going to pop out to see what's going on. But then it's smart enough to go, okay, like I know that my eyes, because I'm nocturnal, or have that sort of eye, right, where there's more light being refracted. It's intelligent enough to know that can give it away, so it'll pop back behind the tree real quick and then lean out to look again and pop back behind the tree real quick. Yeah, man, it's such a common behavior. Matter of fact, a couple of guys who were on the show not too long ago, buddies of mine, the Squatch Watchers, they're from North Carolina. They have a vid just recently that they got of eye shine that is crazy. It's dude, from the distance that this thing is away from them, and it's not extremely far, I would say it's probably maybe 30 yards away, 35 yards away. But where the eye shine is at 30 yards away, number one, it's tall. It's super tall, 9 feet maybe. And the space between the eyes was, I mean, if my eyes are here, these eyes were out here. I mean, huge.
Yeah, and that's why the one that I saw, that I got a little clip of it somewhere. That from the distance it was, because it was still a good little bit away from me. But wow, the distance of the eyes I could see, so it had to have been a lot bigger than like my face, that somebody's, hiding behind a tree 100 feet away. Nobody would have seen my little eyeballs from there. I'm pretty sure of it. So wherever this was, and I remember it looked like it was looking down a gully too. So it was either up in a tree or it was down and very tall. And just, the fact that I could see the eyes that far away, it had to be of good size of something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you said you've gone out, you started going out to look for these things after that encounter. Have you had any other experiences while you were out there? Anything weird happen? Wood knock, screams, anything like that?
Yep. And the coolest thing is, my wife has been with me both times that the two strangest things I can remember kind of happened. Other than that, we had some howling one night that I don't know. I don't think it couldn't have been coyotes, and it was whatever it was that was making the noise was very, very it sounded more, I don't know, like groanish, almost like like if a moose was to moan, but it wasn't that. It was just something else. It definitely wasn't coyotes howling. And I've heard that before. That was weird. But my wife, we were up in Maine and driving along back roads, and I stopped because I saw a deer stand like off in the distance. It wasn't deer season, but I was like, hey, I'm going to stop, go down. I want to go check the stand out and just look around and see the area. I didn't get to the deer stand, and something hits a tree like twice, like they whacked it with a bat. And I mean, wasn't that far away from me. I could kind of tell it was coming from my right side somewhere, and it was just crack, crack like that. And I stop and I look, and then I walk part way over one way, I walk part way over the other way. I didn't see anything, but whatever it was definitely hit a tree, and there was nothing else out there but me and my wife still back at the car because she hadn't even gotten out of the car. So bizarre. And I went back and told her. And then there was another time we were in Ossipee, New Hampshire, and I think we were hiking, and we went up to this little area that looked like somebody had dumped stones, like pea stones up, like in this giant pile. So we walked up this pea stone thing, and then all of a sudden I'm looking over and something starts shaking these trees and bushes like really, really hard. And my wife's standing right there and she could see it too. And I don't know what it was, but I was like, that's it, we're out. So we, head back. But she was with me that time too. I don't know what was shaking the trees, but those are kind of the weird things.
I think what was shaking those trees.
I'm pretty sure. That's why I didn't even want to stick around, because I'm like, the next time, if I ever get a chance to visually see one, I want it to be on my terms, not theirs again. I want to feel a little safer. Can I be in a car and watch one just walk around for a few minutes and then bugger off? I don't want to be there and know that I'm vulnerable. That's what I don't want. Even though I don't know if they're mean or not. I have no idea.
I don't believe they are. I don't believe they are. And this is why, man. If you think of all the people who've had encounters over the course of, how many years, right? Given the physical prowess of these things, they could at any given time. I believe that if you've been in the woods in North America, anywhere, I mean, anywhere, you've probably walked by these things and not known it.
Oh yeah.
That's how prevalent I believe they are in this country. And so given the amount of times that people have been near these things, or even the like full on encounters with them, you hear stories where they may put on a show, right? An aggressive display, but it's usually from a distance. A safe distance for them, probably, and it's usually for a reason. It's not just for nothing. If they wanted to, man, they could kill every single person that they've ever been near, and they would never, you wouldn't hear them. They grab you and me, and I'm a big guy, I'm 6'2", 280 pounds. They grab me, snatch me up, probably throw me over their shoulder and run away with me, and you wouldn't hear a peep. I'd be done. So I don't think that they're mean. I really don't, man. I think that they're curious. I think that they like to remain hidden because that's just how they survive. If they were easy to catch and out in the open, you'd have all these wackos out there trying to shoot them and kill them to prove a point or make some money, or hang one on a wall. And they don't want that. I just think that they live the way they live because that's what works for them. And
because all the stories I've ever had, I looked into like this the Abenaki Indians, which were originally from Canada, and then got forced down here into the northern part of the New England states when the settlers started coming in and whatnot. But there's some of the stories I heard was they were always trying to set traps for these things, and their biggest fear was they would come in and they would steal all their food, like their fish, their skins, everything that they had. These things would come out at night from the mountains and sneak into these Indians' camps and then steal their stuff and then run away. And, so they were always trying to catch them, but they were always like, you can't catch them,
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And it wasn't like they were there hurting anybody. It's just they were stealing their livelihood, So they just wanted to, stop them, these things from doing that. But it wasn't, I don't ever remember hearing too many stories of vicious kills by these things, not of people anyway, not that I've heard of.
No, and you go back, if you go back long enough into like Native American folklore, depending on the tribe and where they were, some of them talk about some more aggressive encounters with them, although it's rare. Most of the Native American tribes in this country, including the Abenakis, have names for these creatures, and they talk about them the same way that they talk about the bear or the crow. These things are not separate. They're real.
Yeah, real to them. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I believe that.
In fact, the name they called it, what was it? Up north, they called it Weejuk, which meant wet one or slippery one in their language, because they could never catch them.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And that was the main thing. They'd see them, they knew they were around, they just kind of put up with them, but they could never catch one. And that's where they got their name from, the one I read anyway.
Well, so we here in Connecticut, we have two tribes. We have the Mashantucket Pequots and we have the Mohegans.
Yep.
And both of them they shared a name for them, I believe, probably because the tribes were so close to each other that they just kind of, shared that term. And now it's slipping my mind. I forget what the name was, but what it translated to was stick Indian.
Oh, yep.
Stick Indian, and for a lot of people, including me, they look Native American, some of them, in the face, or like Neanderthal.
See, that's where I would put mine too. Yeah, giant old ancient Indian or Neanderthal, whatever you want to call it. But yep. Yes. The face looked like that,
Yeah, high cheekbones.
Yep, high cheekbones, very square jaw. I mean, that's what I remember. Yeah.
Yep. That's a very typical, especially for this part of the United States, right? There are subspecies of these things and different genomes. So like when you go out in the Midwest or you go out west or down south, they all look different. And up here in the Northeast, they tend to look more like a wild man, like like you said, an ancient Indian is what they tend to look like up here for the most part. They're not as bulky usually up here. They're more like a basketball player type build, like I'm guessing it's because just like with animals, right? Depending on where they are, is really what dictates how they're built.
Right.
The colder environments, they say, are the bigger animals. The warmer environments create smaller animals, because in the colder environments, obviously, you need more body mass to survive through the cold months and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they tend to be pretty tall here usually, and more lean, because we obviously have different seasons here, so it's not always cold. When it is cold, it's cold. But there are, I forget how many terms in Native American language across this country, but almost every single tribe in this country has a name for them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I've heard so many names. It's just like it's neat, because I was kind of intrigued, especially as I got a little older. I wanted to look more into it and then see, okay, what was everybody else seeing and talking about, And of course, the Native Americans had stories upon stories passed on for years. They're easy to find if you just go look them up, And it's like, wow, they're everywhere,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and this area. Is one of this was the first settled area in the United States.
Yep.
At least by white colonists anyway.
Yeah.
But that would also mean that this was the first area where white colonists ran into Native Americans,
Yep.
right? And so tales go back a long time, man, a long time. You have the Penobscots up in New Hampshire and Maine, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The Abenaki. Trying to think of a couple of the other tribes that are out that way. The Narragansetts in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
But they all have them. I actually just tried to left a message this week with the historian at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum, because I wanted to go talk to her about what some of their legends are, because you can find some stuff, but there's nothing like talking to the actual elders of the tribe or the historians. They got it all.
Oh yeah.
And that's if they'll talk to you.
Yeah, right. If they're willing to say anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So man, that's crazy. 15 years old, driving down, trying to get home from your girlfriend's house, probably happy as a pig in shit, right? You just left a pretty girl's house. You're like, yeah, nothing's bothering me tonight.
Nope. On a snowmobile, which I always loved, even as a kid, and then bang. What?
Yeah.
I remember going home and having a massive headache for some reason. Just
Really?
yeah. And when I say I don't remember hitting the gas, I remember I played hockey when I was younger, and I got checked up against the boards, and it knocked me out for like 5 seconds. When I came to, that's exactly what I felt like when I was sitting there, and I was looking at this thing. I had that same feeling, and then the next thing you know, I'm just on the gas running, and I didn't tell myself to do it. It was almost like I was in a daze. It was so strange, I think it's just my brain's going like, there's something there that ain't supposed to be there,
Maybe, but it's really interesting. Narragansett, official beer of the clam.
There you go.
Nice. It's interesting that you say that, though, because one of the theories is that these things use infrasound.
Yep.
And what's the other one? What's the other sound that we can't hear? Is it ultrasound? Maybe, I don't know, but the theory is that they definitely use infrasound to stun and confuse prey, or if they feel like they're in danger. It is ultrasound. Okay, thank you, Janelle. So it's possible that this thing, tigers do it too. There's other animals that do it, and you can't hear it, right? So this thing could have possibly let some kind of ultrasound or infrasound out that you couldn't hear, because our ears can't hear in those frequencies, but it's enough to disorient you. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, and you're just going. And then you have a headache when you get home too. That's kind of weird. It's kind of strange.
Yeah. And the other time, we were out bigfooting somewhere looking in an area where I remember, this is probably 5-6 years ago. No, maybe 7 years ago now. I do remember us splitting up, and we just walked and we were just going to circle back to each other. And it was dark, and we just had flashlights and our little cameras and stuff like that. And I just remember at one point something coming over me where I felt really fearful. And then I started to feel really ill all of a sudden. And then I don't know what's going on. So I start to walk faster and get away, and, just to head off in the other direction. The minute I got away, I was fine. I didn't feel sick anymore. And that's what I often wonder. It was like, was there something out there that I couldn't see that was making me feel that way? That was there. I just couldn't see it,
It's possible. It's probable, honestly, because you think if you put it all together, you add it all up, right? 2 + 2 = 4. You're in the woods where these things probably are.
Yep.
If you're in, listen, if you're in the woods in New Hampshire, Vermont, or Maine,
Mhm.
some of the most forested states in this country, with plenty of places for these things to hide, and that's, and don't mistake that for like that's the only place they live, because it's not. They'll live right close to a playground. They'll live behind a church, like wherever they feel like it. They can, if they can hide, there's water and there's food, they can live there.
Mhm.
But obviously, if there's big forested areas, then you have a chance of having more of them, and that they're going to be in those areas. And so if you're out there and you're in these areas where these things are, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, you start feeling sick and disoriented and all that. And, would you say, you said you felt a little like nervous or scared or
Well,
whatever?
yeah, it just felt like I was afraid, but I wasn't even sure what I was afraid of. Just felt
Yeah.
like, oh, something's not right. I feel really weird, and then got that sick feeling, and yeah, it was just something like that.
Yeah. See, that's something people talk about a lot. And the word that I hear often is dread.
Oh yeah, yeah, I would put that. That's perfect because that's what it felt like. It felt like, oh no, something really bad's going on. I mean, like, and then it just, as quick as it came, I walked another 10 steps and it was gone. Which was weird, but
Yeah, see, I would say that there was probably something around there that didn't want you there, and that was its way of letting you know, time to get out of here, pal.
yeah, yeah, and boy, I did too. I wandered off and I was like, yeah, that's enough for this evening. I'm good.
Yeah, see, when they know you're around, and they know you're around from the moment you step into the woods.
Oh yeah.
It'd be like somebody coming into your living room, man. Like, you're gonna know they're there. You're gonna know something was moved, because that's where you live day in and day out. When they know you're there, if they don't want you around, they're going to give you warnings, if they don't want you there. The problem is that if people don't understand what's going on, if they don't understand the warnings, and they don't know what to look for, that's when people get into tricky positions.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to us in 1994. We didn't have a chance to talk about that, but rocks were thrown into camp, for 2 days, 2 nights. Then something smashed into the back of our friend's camper in the middle of the night. I mean, he said it felt like a car hit it.
Oh,
Something mimicked their dog in the woods. Something took the jelly jar out of the cooler in the middle of the night, took the top off, and then just put it back on the cooler.
huh.
And all these things happened. We didn't understand what it was, because none of us knew that they existed.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, instead of heeding the warnings, we did the opposite. We went in. We hiked into the woods, into where this thing lived. And it was at that point, and even then, on the hike in from the ridge, we're getting rocks thrown at us. It's breaking limbs. Chris pulls out his gun, fires it in the air. You think that made it any better? No, made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
That whole ridge line lit up like the 4th of July, man. It was like nothing I've ever heard in my life to this day, and I don't think I ever will again. The violence that was going on inside those bushes and those trees was like a freight train was running through them. The vibrations coming down that ridge into the ground under our feet, you could feel the thing running. I mean, you could feel it. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. But it tried to tell for 3 days, like, dude, you don't belong here. But we just had no idea. We had no idea. And then the thing that you're talking about, like feeling sick, and the headache and all that, is exactly what we experienced once we got face to face with this thing, and it started vocalizing. I felt wicked disoriented. I felt like I was going to throw up. Super dizzy, headache. My dad and Chris never really talked about it, because they're old school guys, and they, it was like after it happened, that was it for years until finally my dad kind of was like, yeah, all right, like it happened, and that's it. We're leaving it at that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've talked to his son, because his son, who was 9 at the time, I was 14, and he explained the same thing. Like he felt sick. He urinated, but I think that was more because he was so terrified what was going on. But man, it's just it's really crazy to think that they are out there and they have the abilities that they have, and they're a relative of ours.
Mm.
I mean, that's the craziest thing to me, is that the DNA studies show that these things are related to us, and they are probably our closest living relative on the planet, if everything is correct. Closer than any monkey, any ape, any chimpanzee. These things are like our cousins, and and the thing. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the government knows about them?
I believe they do. Yeah.
And
I believe they won't let us know either, due to money situations and things that will happen. If one of them was found, or a few of them were found, they'd probably shut down all the logging and all the stuff, and somebody's going to lose billions of dollars. So even if they do know, they ain't letting us know.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I saw people in the chat earlier talking about how they believe that a lot of the like Hollywood movies and TV shows and stuff are a form of disclosure, that it's a way to desensitize us to this, similar to kind of what they did with UFOs and aliens over so many years, right? So Roswell happened, and they lied. They said, no, it was a weather balloon. Nobody with half a brain thought that was a weather balloon.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you have a half a brain and you can think for yourself, you should have known that that was no weather balloon. But what they did is they created movies. What was the one with Richard Dreyfuss?
Close Encounters.
Yeah, it's a great movie, wonderful movie. They created movies like that. They created movies like War of the Worlds. Even goofy movies about aliens. As a way to soften the blow. That one day they're gonna have to admit it, right? And if it was kept a full secret, it was never talked about ever. You never saw any pictures of anything or whatever. And then one day they had to admit that UFOs were real. The shock that would have happened then would have been insane.
Oh, yeah.
People would have freaked out, man. Freaked out.
World would lose their mind.
Yeah, they would have gone nuts. But they slowly but surely fed us this stuff, and they did it in a way that was entertaining, right? And it was normal. And so when the day came when they said, hey, by the way, UFOs are real, we don't know who's flying them, we don't know where they're from, but they've been here for a while. That should have been the biggest news story in the last 50 years. And it wasn't.
No, I saw it trickled out. I remember.
Dude. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like kind of a big deal the first couple days, where those pilots were like, yeah, look at this thing, look at this Tic Tac thing, look at the thing going in the water. And people were like, oh, that's cool. But that's about the biggest rise you got out of anybody.
Yeah.
This should have been, earth-quaking news. I mean, it should have really made everybody across the world talk about it, and it really was not a big deal at all.
Nah, Now I'm still waiting for them to release more. They kind of started something, and now you're just like, now you get that little thing every once in a while. They'll say, "Oh, well, they're looking into going back into looking about aliens and UFOs," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. When are you just going to tell us?"
Yeah, right. Show me more. But again, so that's why, because they got away with it.
Yep.
It was so innocuous, right? It was like, oh, all right, whatever. So UFOs are real. Big whoop is basically how it was received.
Mhm.
And people didn't really push for much more, except for the real hardcore UFO community, who for the last 50 years has been ridiculed and made out to be quacks anyway.
Yeah.
Just like this community, right? You believe in Bigfoot? Oh, yeah, all right. Well,
Yeah.
we know who you are.
Yeah.
What kind of medicine are you taking?
Yeah.
You know,
What are you smoking? Is my first question I get asked if I mention it and to certain crowds, or whatever.
yeah,
What were you smoking anyway? Like, no. Yeah, I know. I knew I was going to get that answer.
yeah, yeah.
Like, whatever.
My response is when they say, "What were you smoking?" It's like, well, obviously not what you're getting, because anything I ever smoked never made me see a Sasquatch. So hand over what you got.
Yeah, right. I know. Take some of that stuff. I'm spending money on stuff that don't get you half that with it.
Oh man, I'm joking, guys. I don't want anybody to get upset. But yeah, it's foolish, the way that people kind of look at things and say things. It's called killer cryptid. Yeah, that's
Oh, there you go. Hey, that'd be a good one.
that's the strain, killer cryptid.
Killer cryptid.
Nice, you would love it, Mike. You gotta copyright that one, man. Cryptid Kush. That's good. But it's really so it's so insulting that there are so many good people. People are going nuts in the chat now with it. I'm smoking that skunk ape.
The skunk ape. Yep.
That's great. So it's insulting that if you've had an encounter, if you've been in the woods, and even if it wasn't face to face, if you heard a howl that you knew was no other animal in the woods, no known animal, because I promise you, when you hear one of these things let off,
there's nothing else like it.
No.
Now I would know. It's like, not even close.
Explain try to explain what it sounded like when you heard that howl.
When we heard it, it actually sounded very guttural, and it sounded like somebody really like violently vomiting. That's what it sounded like. Something really big, like really deep. That's what, and it just it went on for like about 4 seconds, and then quieted down, and then did it one more time, and then that was it.
So like someone vomiting. Wow, that's the first time I've ever heard that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just sounded like.
Okay, all right.
It was more of a groan growl. I can't even come close to making the sound, but it sounded very guttural. That's what it sounded more to me. And it's like, I know I've never heard anything. I hear a lot of weird noises out there in the woods over the years, but nothing like that. There isn't a bear big enough to have a set of lungs to make that kind of noise, even if it did one of its little gruffs or wherever. It's like, wherever that was big.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that when you I had Ron Moorhead on the show not too long ago. Are you familiar with Ron? You know who Ron is?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, so Ron was on the show not too long ago. First of all, I was a kid in a candy store that day. That was just amazing to be able to talk to that man. The Sierra Sounds are still the absolute greatest audio of one of these creatures that have ever, well, two of these creatures that have ever been recorded. And some of the sounds that these things make, when he had that guy, that crypto linguist, study them, the guy determined a few things. He determined that, number one, this was a language. It was a language just like our language. They were speaking syllables. They had different words. There was inflection in their voices, like just like you and me. So when someone asks you a question, if I'm like, hey, hey Dax, how you doing today? There's that inflection where it sounds like I'm asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
There was that same inflection in these things' voices. At one point in it, you can hear one ask a question to Ron. I mean, it's clearly a question. I don't know what it's saying in its language, but it's clearly a question. It's crazy. But the other thing that they determined was the vocal range on these things can go much higher than ours and also much lower than ours, which would point to the fact that they are much, much larger than us. They have a much bigger set of lungs and potentially two sets of vocal cords. You know, I heard a guy a couple days ago talk about the sounds that he heard, and it sounded like it was making two sounds at once, a high-pitched sound and a low guttural sound, all at the same time. And, that ain't nothing I can do.
No, I couldn't even. Yeah, even if I had a microphone and an amp, I don't think I could mimic what I heard and the other people heard. I don't think I could do it. It just gets loud, but it just doesn't sound right because that thing was, whatever it was penetrating. It was weird.
Yeah, crazy, man, crazy. Looking back on your time in the woods as a kid and a teenager, prior to this, is there anything now that sticks out that you look back on and you go, well, shoot, like maybe that was one? Did you ever have any strange smells, or people talk about them smelling like rotting flesh, or
I got one good experience, and my wife was there for this one. We actually lived in Virginia, and we went camping with a bunch of friends. I think it was like 10, 12 of us in the Shenandoah Mountains. We went every year for like 2-3 years. This trip, we all went up, set it up. It started to rain on everybody towards the night. So we spread these tarps up over the trees to try to stay out of the rain, had a fire going. Everybody's whooping it up. We're all drinking and having a good time and blah, blah, blah. It gets late, We're all sitting around the fire, and all of a sudden we keep getting this odor. And what was weird was it would come from one direction for a little bit, and it smelled like wet dogs and rotten something. It had that smell, and it would come from this way for a bit. And then all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, it was the odor was coming from another direction, and then another direction. And everybody kept smelling it, going like, what the hell is this, right? Then we finally go to bed. Everybody gets in their tents, and all of a sudden, you start hearing this noise again. And somebody goes, who is that? Is that Kenny? He's up there puking. Kenny goes, no, I'm in the tent, man. And everybody goes, no, I'm in the tent. I'm in the tent. Everybody was accounted for in the tent, but something was out there making this weird growling, grunting noises, and sticking around the camp area with 12 people whooping it up, which was obviously really bizarre. And that odor it stuck around for like an hour, but it kept changing directions to where the odor was coming from. So and I had no idea. Didn't know anything about it. I'd already seen that one in Vermont, because of course I was 15 then. I think I was 18, 19 when we were camping. But didn't even cross my mind that would have been a Bigfoot until years later.
Crazy. People talk about the odor a lot. I I haven't smelled anything, not yet. But who knows? Maybe some smell, some don't. If they're all different, some take showers, some maybe use Pantene, and
Yeah.
they have beautiful shiny hair, and other ones have really dirty, gross looking hair.
Yeah.
Let's see, what does it say? A boar would have had a whole herd, and they make lots of noise. Probably Sasquatch count. Yeah. The thing about it, right? The camping thing. So, another researcher was talking about this, and he said the best thing you can do if you want to have a Sasquatch encounter is to sit your ass still, set up a camp, cook some food, play some music, and just do normal camping stuff. He said that is the best way to have an encounter because they get wicked curious. They want to know what's going on. So with all you 12 of you there having a good time, that probably where you would think like it would keep them away, it probably did the absolute opposite. It was like, oh man, what are these guys doing? Like, let's go see. Sounds like they're having a good time,
Yep.
And sure enough, they came in for sure.
Yeah. And I'd never even crossed my mind. I mean, the whole night I was just like, it's bizarre. And everybody smelled the same thing, heard the same noises. It never crossed my mind that could have been a Bigfoot till years later when people started talking about the odors and things like that. And then I was like, I had no idea. I was like, wow, who knows, But that was a real bizarre thing, which very well could have been a Bigfoot, I guess. The only thing I know that would stick around us being all silly like that, because animals just don't usually stick around that close to a campsite for that long. Because this thing was around for at least an hour or more.
I bet you it was more than one.
Yeah, it could have been.
I bet you it was more than one. Usually where there's one, there's others. Generally, they're never alone.
Yeah.
Not from what they're finding out. But yeah, I think, you go looking for them, and they know you're looking. They're like, they're going to stay hidden. But if you're out there just doing your thing, having a good time, it gets them intrigued, man. They want to know what's going on. They want to see what you're doing. And because they're a sentient, thinking, feeling, intelligent being, like we are, they have those curiosities, and they want to learn. And so just like we do, I love to people watch, so do many other people love to people watch. It's because you're trying to pick up on behaviors and see what people are about, and maybe get a laugh. And I'm sure it's not much different for them, especially if they're related to us.
Oh yeah, right. They must have somewhat of a sense of humor somewhere.
100% they do. 100%. Snow White Bigfoot is someone who has like the perfect evidence of them having a sense of humor, because these things mess around with her on her property almost every day.
Duh.
Almost every day, man. If you've never watched her channel, I'm telling you, you got to watch it. She has a diary of her encounters because they live on her property. And she's been interacting with them for years. And she has an ongoing video diary of years of interactions with these things. And some of it's comical, man. Some of the stuff they do is really funny. And I'm pretty sure it's probably the young ones that are doing most of that funny, goofy stuff. But she even has a picture of where one of them was trying to look in the car window, and you can see this, right? You literally see the wrinkles from the hand and the finger on the car, like it was looking like this. And you can also see the forearm pressed up against the window. You can see literally the goose pimples on it. And then the hairs coming out of those follicles. from the oils in the skin that it left this impression on the window. It's really it's pretty neat. It's really cool.
Yeah, that would creep me out. I'm glad I ain't got one looking into my windows.
Oh, dude, that's the least of it. They go into her garage when she's home.
Wow. Nah, I'm all set.
Yeah. The snowmobile was enough, huh?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe if one wants to come up and, ask me for a cigarette or something, I might have a different outlook on things, but I don't know.
You share a beer with one?
Yeah, hey, yep.
Yeah. Maybe that's what he was trying to do that night. You guys were out in the woods. Maybe he was just trying to snag a brew.
Yeah, that's right. He just wanted a little beer,
Well, listen, man, is there anything else you wanted to tell us? I know the encounter wasn't that long or whatever, but still an awesome encounter. But is there anything else you wanted to share with us while you're here?
Just, I guess the only other thing would be, the only other strange thing that I kind of put together was when I was younger, I would always have this repeat dream growing up that there was a giant dark humanoid object that was following me at night. I was always walking, and then I would try to run. I couldn't run fast enough, and I'd always end up at our high school underneath the bleachers for the football stadium. And then all of a sudden the thing would go away and I'd wake up. After I saw that thing in 1987, I never had that dream ever again. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I remember having that dream over and over and over from the time I was real little till I was, that age. And then, I haven't had it since. Never again.
Wow, that's really weird.
So I didn't know if that was something, but I kind of put the two together now and go, maybe I was expecting something that I didn't know I was expecting, or, I don't know. But it's just strange how I would always have that same repeat dream. And then all of a sudden after that encounter, they stopped completely. I've never had it again.
That's really weird. Damn, I wish you would have been able to talk to Robin. Robin McCrae does like almost like a mediumship with them. She can communicate with them through like mind speak. It's really, I know it sounds wacky, man, but she I'll be honest with you. I was kind of skeptical about it until we talked on the phone for the first time, and she said something to me that just blew me away, and I just like I couldn't not believe her after that. And then she just continued to go on with things that there was no way she could have known. None. She didn't know me. We literally just met. She had no idea who I was. She didn't know I had a show. She contacted me because somebody I knew or just met over Messenger was a friend of hers, and he's from Russia, and he got cut off on Messenger and was trying to get a hold of me and asked her to, but she didn't know who the hell I was. And so, like, it was very weird how it all happened. And when I saw her name, I knew who she was. And we started talking, and then she started telling me things that happened to me in the woods just days prior. She was telling me what happened, and how could she possibly know? And so I was very skeptical until she started telling me this stuff, and then I was just like, wait a minute, that's really weird. Yeah. So, but it would have been really interesting to hear what she had to say about that dream and the connection to that one that you saw, because I believe that. I believe 100% that they're able to tag people, once you've had some kind of an encounter with them, or even before you do. I don't know if maybe they're around you or your property when you're a child, that they can somehow tag you and then communicate and follow you through your life. I really believe this.
Yep. I think so too. there was one time I was 4 years old. We were at my grandparents' farm, and my mother and I walked out back in the back field, and there was barbed wire fence and woods, and we used to walk down just into the field and then loop around and come back to the barn. We walked out, and then we started hearing this loud, like, crunching noise. Like, I mean, something big was crunching through the woods. Couldn't see anything. And then all of a sudden, I remember my mom touching my shoulder, turning me around. She goes, "Oh, it's probably just a big cow in the woods," and turning me around and then walking me back the other way. So I don't know if she saw something or heard something. All I know is something big was crunching around out there. And if it was a cow, it was on the wrong side of the fence, number one. It was supposed to be in where we were, and then not in the woods. And I don't know. I never ended up asking my mom ever about that situation, because by the time I started to get into the Bigfoot thing and look more into this stuff, she'd already passed away. So I never really got to go back and ask. But I do remember see even something like that, and I'm always like wondering, like, I wonder if they knew where I was the whole time, because I've always lived up there. I was always outside. Maybe they saw me all the time. I don't know.
I bet you. I would bet $1 million if I had it that they did. That they probably have watched you since you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
You lived up there and you played outside near the woods, in the woods. I bet you anything they did, and they may have even been there to protect you. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really believe that they are pure at heart.
Yeah. I think they're out watching over something, and I just don't know if it's us or something else we're not supposed to stumble onto, or they're protecting people while they're out there, or I don't know. Something's going on. I believe they're out there for a reason, but I don't know what 100% that is. But
yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think it's us. I think it's the planet, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Because who's going to be more connected to the planet than them?
Oh yeah, because as far as I know, it seems like they've always been here. The more I start reading, if you go back even in the Bible with like the Book of Enoch and all that stuff, it sounds like they've always been here, regardless. So it's kind of like, humans have changed and evolved, but it sounds like these same things have always been the same and always been here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've heard vocal recordings of these things before, and I swear to you, I have heard them use the word Enoch multiple times.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Yep. I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, that right there has got to tell you, if that's a word in their language, they've had to have been here for a very long time.
Oh yeah,
they know that word.
Yeah, and I still find it strange how the religious people took the Book of Enoch out of the Bible for some reason.
A little weird, isn't it?
Yeah, why would you just remove that but leave the rest of it? I mean, the rest of it's as much of a fairy tale, unless you're a believer, as the Enoch books were. So it's like, but why take those out? I don't know. Somebody wanted to hide something. I don't know.
Somebody did want to hide something. And for those people who are religious fanatics, and they say, like, you can't believe in a god, or I'm not an organized religion guy. I don't like buy into just one religion, because I believe in like more of the spiritual aspect. I do believe that there's something out there, a god of some sort, that helped create all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it looks like, who he or she is, but I do believe there's something. Mm-hmm. But for the people who are religious fanatics, and they say, like, oh, you can't believe in God and believe in Bigfoot or aliens, to me, that is so hypocritical, because how can you believe in a God you can't see? Never seen. You've never physically seen him or her in front of you. You've never even seen, a footprint track from him or her, right? You've never gotten a DNA sample, but you do have it from these things. Mm-hmm. So how can you say that you can't believe in both? The other part of that is there is an encounter story that to me is one of the greatest encounters I think that there's ever been with these creatures. And it's and I forget what it's on. I think it's on Bigfoot 911 is what it was on. It was like episode 47 or something, if I remember correctly. But there was a gentleman who was giving a woman a ride home out in this like backcountry town, and he got onto her property. And when it was time to leave, she said to him, "Whatever you do not stop for anything. You go. You get off this property and you don't stop. No matter what you do, no matter what you see, don't stop." And he thought it was really weird. I don't know if I want to tell you because I want you to listen to it, but anyway, this thing grabbed his crucifix and uttered a word and pointed to the sky. I mean, and this is a good old boy. This is not some kooky, this is a good old boy who kept this story to himself for a very long time and didn't really want to talk about it, and then decided one day that he was tired of carrying it with him and just needed to get it off his chest. You could tell listening to this guy tell the story that there was no BS. He was telling the truth. You just could tell. And so that's pretty crazy. More to the mystery, that's all. More to the mystery. But listen, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. It was great to hear your encounter. Like I said, all these things are so important. Every single detail, every encounter is more evidence and more for us to learn from. And even the other things that you've had happen, the eye shine, the stuff at the camping, and the stuff with your wife, all that stuff it adds up, and it's so interesting too for me. Even having this show, like, I'm just a fan of this stuff. It's really just fun for me to listen to. So I appreciate you coming on, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's fun. I like this. Because I'm still looking for answers. So the more we dig, maybe someday we'll come up with something,
Maybe, man. Maybe.
Yep.
And listen, you're welcome to come out with me any day, brother.
Nice.
I go out researching just about every weekend. So if you ever want, you just let me know and we can meet up. I actually have a plan to go up to Mass again soon to the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, man. That's a weird
That's
place.
a creepy place over there. Yeah.
weird place.
I'd love to go over there sometime. Yeah, that'd be fun.
If you want, you just let me know, brother, anytime.
Yeah, awesome.
Anytime, man. All right. You guys, thank you for being here tonight. I will be back. Let me check my calendar because I don't remember. I think I will be back on. Oh yeah, that's right. So right now I'll be back on Wednesday, and this one's a little bit different. It's fresh. Was that I think it was Monster 911 fresh. Yeah. So Wednesday's gonna be a little bit different. Wednesday I am having on the gentleman that I spoke about who was the creator and producer of a Bigfoot movie. This was not something that was in the theaters. He openly jokes about his own movie and about how terrible it was. I watched it. I didn't think it was that terrible. I tend to like those kind of goofy B movies, though, especially when it relates to Sasquatch. So I didn't think it was that bad. I've seen way worse. But I'm having him on for a couple reasons. Number one, because I wanted to talk about Bigfoot's place in pop culture. And number two, because who better to speak to about creating a suit, a costume that would really be able to pass the test, that would be so super realistic that you could not say that this is fake, and what it would take, because I promise you, they created a costume for this movie, and had makeup artists and stuff on set, and spent money on this, a lot of money, way more than most people could spend. So who better to, you know, discuss that part of it? I told you we're going to do some different stuff on the channel, not always going to be the same. So he'll be on Wednesday. Also, if any of you ladies out there who watch the show like the Hallmark and Lifetime Christmas movies, this is the guy who creates a majority of them. So if you're a fan, you know, just watch because he's going to be on. I already told him that I had a bone to pick for every time I had to watch one of those stupid movies. I'm just kidding. He's a great guy. It'll be an interesting show. And then I'm back on next Friday, with, oh yeah, that's right. Next Friday, Al Santoriga is back on the show to finish what we started a week ago. If you watch that show, you know how wonderful that was. That guy is, he's amazing. So he's back on Friday. So, but we'll be in touch before then. You guys, you know how I like to post up little things here and there to let you guys know what's going on. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Dax. I appreciate you, man. You're welcome back anytime. And I'll catch you guys next Wednesday. I love you all. Have a great night. Take care.